For as long as the people of the kingdom could remember, there was a legend, one that spoke of an ancient beast bound by chains that no sword could break. The creature had once been a terror of the land, with its massive wings and fiery eyes. It was said to have the strength of 1,000 armies and the mind of a god. But 3 centuries ago it was captured by a powerful group of wizards, and its chains were forged by the gods themselves, each link made of magic so strong that even the mightiest swords could not cut through them. The stories of the creature were passed down from generation to generation, but the beast itself had long since been forgotten by most. Some believed it was just a tale, a bedtime story for children. Others, however, whispered of the day the creature would rise again, its chains finally broken, and the world would fall to its power. In a quiet village nestled at the edge of the kingdom lived Aiden, a humble blacksmith. His shop was small, tucked between the forests and the towering hills that led to the mountains beyond. Aiden had heard the stories of the beast many times as a child, but as he grew older, the legend faded into the background of his life. He had far more practical concerns, like shaping iron, mending swords, and forging tools for the farmers in the village. It was a cold morning when Aiden first came across the rusty old sword. A traveler, covered in a thick cloak, entered his shop, carrying the weapon in his hands. The sword was not impressive by any means. Its once shiny blade was dull and covered with rust. The hilt was worn, its leather grip peeling away, and the metal seemed fragile, as though it might snap with the smallest amount of pressure. The traveler, however, was determined. "I need this sword fixed," the stranger said, his voice low and serious. It must be restored to its former strength. Aiden looked at the sword. His curiosity piqued. "It's a fine piece of work, but it looks like it's been through many battles. Why not get a new one?" he asked, running his fingers over the blade. The traveler stared at him, his eyes sharp and unwavering. "This is no ordinary sword. It is the key." Aiden raised an eyebrow. "The key to what?" The traveler paused before speaking again, his tone quieter now. "The sword that can break the chains of the ancient beast." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Aiden had heard of the beast many times before, but he never thought he would hear someone speak of it in such a direct way. He had heard the old stories, how no weapon, no matter how strong, had ever been able to break the chains that held the creature prisoner. It was said that only the bravest warriors had ever even come close, but all had failed. Why would anyone want to break those chains? Aiden asked, more out of instinct than curiosity. "The beast is dangerous. It's been locked away for hundreds of years for a reason." The traveler nodded, his face grim. "You are right. The beast is dangerous, but it is not the true enemy. It was bound by the gods to keep the balance of the world. But there are those who wish to see the world change, those who want the beast, to be free, to rise again and bring about a new era." Aiden could see the sincerity in the traveler's eyes. He didn't seem like the kind of person to make up such a tale. There was something about him, an air of mystery, a presence that made the air feel heavier when he spoke. "Why come to me?" Aiden asked. "I'm just a blacksmith. I fix swords and tools, nothing more." The traveler's lips curled into a slight smile. "You are more than that. You are the one who can restore this sword. The last one who wielded it was a great warrior, a man chosen to guard the chains of the beast. But over time, the sword became rusted, forgotten, and the magic faded. You, Aiden, have the skill to bring it back to life." Aiden hesitated. He wasn't sure if he was ready for such a responsibility. Fixing a sword was one thing, but using it to break chains that had withstood centuries? That was another matter entirely. "What if I can't restore it?" Aiden asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "What if I make it worse?" The traveler's gaze softened. "You won't know unless you try. The sword has chosen you, Aiden. The magic is within you, too. You just have to believe it. Aiden looked at the sword again, his hand gently resting on the worn hilt. It felt strange in his grip, like it was waiting for something. He had always known that there was something more to his work than just forging tools. But this was different. This was a chance to be part of something bigger, something legendary. "All right," Aiden said finally, nodding. "I'll fix it, but only if you promise me one thing." The traveler raised an eyebrow. "What is that?" "That I won't have to use it to fight the beast. I'm a blacksmith, not a warrior." The traveler's expression softened, and for the first time, a hint of a smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "I promise you that, Aiden. You will not fight the beast, but you will play a part in a much larger story." Aiden wasn't sure what to make of the traveler's words, but he had no choice now. He would repair the sword, and, for better or for worse, his fate was tied to it. The next day, Aiden began working on the sword. He knew it wouldn't be an easy task. The blade was old, rusted, and weak, but something about it felt special. As he worked, he couldn't shake the thought of the traveler's words. Was this really the sword that could break the chains of the ancient beast? And if so, why had it come to him? He had never thought of himself as anything more than a simple blacksmith. The weight of the task seemed almost too much to bear, but he had agreed, and now he had no choice but to see it through. As he worked on polishing the blade, Aiden couldn't help but think back to the strange traveler. He had asked so many questions about the sword and its history, but the man hadn't said much about himself. Who was he? And why had he come to Aiden of all people? That evening, as the sun began to set, the traveler returned. Aiden had just finished putting the final touches on the sword, its edge now shining like new. The traveler stepped into the shop, his eyes immediately locking on the weapon. "Is it ready?" the traveler asked, his voice steady and calm. Aiden nodded. "It's not perfect, but it's strong again. I've polished the blade and sharpened it as best I can. It should be able to withstand a lot more than it could before." The traveler walked over to the workbench and carefully picked up the sword. He ran his fingers over the hilt, his face unreadable. Aiden watched him closely, wondering if the man was pleased or disappointed. Finally, the traveler turned to him. "You've done well, Aiden," he said, his voice soft but full of approval. "This sword will play a part in history. I hope you are ready for what comes next." Aiden felt a strange chill run down his spine at the words. "What do you mean by that?" he asked, his voice uneasy. The traveler paused, his expression darkening slightly. "You will see soon enough," he replied. "But first, we must prepare for the journey ahead." Aiden blinked, confused. "Journey? I thought you said I wouldn't have to fight the beast." The traveler's eyes softened, and for the first time, Aiden saw a hint of warmth in them. "You won't have to fight it directly, but you must help me. The beast is more than just a creature of strength. It is tied to the fate of the world, and its chains are part of an ancient magic that holds the balance of all things." Aiden frowned, still unsure of what the traveler meant. "What do you want me to do, then?" The traveler gave a small smile. "You will accompany me to the place where the beast is bound. We must be sure that the sword is ready. The chains are powerful, but they are also ancient, and their magic is fading. The sword may be the key to stopping the beast, but only if it is used at the right time, in the right place." Aiden's mind raced with questions. He had spent his life forging tools for the villagers, but now he was being drawn into something much bigger than he could ever have imagined. He had no idea what he was getting into, but there was a part of him that felt both fear and excitement. The chance to be part of something legendary was too big to ignore. He finally nodded. "All right, I'll help you. But where are we going?" The traveler's smile widened, and he stepped toward the door. "We will travel to the hidden temple where the beast is bound. It lies deep within the forest, beyond the mountains. Few have seen it, and fewer still have returned. But we must go, for the chains are weakening, and the time is fast approaching. Aiden felt a lump form in his throat. The journey sounded dangerous, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for what lay ahead. But he had no choice now. He had made a promise, and he would keep it. The traveler left the shop, and Aiden quickly gathered what little he needed for the journey. He didn't have much, just a few changes of clothes, a small pack of supplies, and, of course, the sword. It felt strange to carry something so powerful. He had never been a warrior, never fought a battle, but now he was heading into the unknown, with only a rusty sword to guide him. As the two of them set out on the road the next morning, Aiden couldn't help but feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. They traveled in silence for the most part, the only sounds being the crunch of their footsteps on the dirt road and the occasional call of a bird overhead. The forest surrounding them grew denser as they moved deeper into the wilderness, and the air became thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient trees. After several days of travel, they reached the base of the mountains. The road grew steeper, and the journey became more difficult. Aiden's muscles ached from the long days of walking, but the traveler seemed unaffected, his pace steady and sure. Every now and then, the traveler would glance at Aiden, his expression unreadable, as if sizing him up. They camped that night at the foot of the mountain, the sky above them clear and full of stars. Aiden lay on his back, staring up at the sky, his thoughts racing. The idea of breaking the chains of the beast still seemed impossible. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this journey was no accident. There was something bigger at play, something that he couldn't quite understand. The traveler sat by the fire, his face illuminated by the flickering light. "Aiden," he said after a long pause, "do you believe in destiny?" Aiden turned his head, surprised by the question. "Destiny?" he asked. "I don't know. I've never really thought about it." The traveler nodded as if he had expected that answer. "Destiny is a strange thing. Sometimes we are chosen for a purpose, even if we don't understand it. At first. You were chosen, Aiden, just as I was chosen long ago. We are linked by something much greater than ourselves." Aiden didn't know what to say to that. The idea of destiny seemed far-fetched, especially for a simple blacksmith like him. But as he looked at the traveler, he began to wonder if perhaps there was truth in his words. Maybe this was all meant to be. The night passed in silence, and as dawn broke the next morning, Aiden and the traveler resumed their journey. The mountains loomed ahead, their peaks hidden by clouds, and the path grew steeper with every step. But Aiden felt something shift within him, a sense of purpose, a feeling that he was walking down a path that had been set long before he even knew it existed. The journey through the mountains was harder than Aiden had imagined. Every step they took seemed to climb higher and higher, the path narrowing as they ascended the rocky terrain. The air grew thinner, and the cold bit into Aiden's skin, making him shiver despite the layers of clothing he wore. He could feel his muscles aching from the constant strain, but the traveler, as usual, seemed unaffected, moving with the ease of someone who had spent their life walking these paths. By the time they reached the top of the mountain, the sun was setting behind them, casting long shadows across the jagged cliffs. Aiden felt exhausted, his body begging for rest, but the traveler pressed on, never stopping for long. They camped that night near a small, bubbling stream, the cold water offering some relief from the heat of the day's travel. As Aiden sat by the fire, warming his hands, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. They had been traveling for days now, and the further they went, the more distant and isolated everything seemed. The mountains were vast, the forests endless, and the world beyond them felt more and more like a distant memory. The traveler, sitting across from him by the fire, didn't seem to share Aiden's concerns. He gazed into the flames, his eyes distant as though lost in thought. For a long while, neither of them spoke, the only sound the crackling of the fire and the rustle of the trees in the wind. Finally, Aiden broke the silence. "How much further?" he asked, his voice hoarse from the long days of travel. The traveler glanced up, his eyes sharp and focused. "Not far," he said quietly. "We are almost there." Aiden nodded, though he had no idea what almost there truly meant. The further they went, the more he realized just how little he knew about what lay ahead. He had been following the traveler without question, but doubt was beginning to creep into his mind. What if they were walking straight into danger? What if the beast was more powerful than they had imagined, more dangerous than anyone could possibly comprehend? "What exactly are we going to find?" Aiden asked, his voice quieter now, as though he were asking himself more than the traveler. The traveler looked at him then, his gaze steady. "You will see soon enough. The beast is not what most people think. It is not a mindless creature of destruction. It has been imprisoned for centuries because it holds power. Power that could destroy or save the world, depending on who controls it." Aiden frowned, still unsure of what the traveler meant. "What power?" The traveler paused, as if considering how much to say. "It is the power to manipulate the forces of nature itself. The beast can control fire, water, earth, and air. It has the ability to shape the world around it. But that power is dangerous in the wrong hands. That is why it was bound." Aiden's mind raced as he tried to process what the traveler was saying. A creature that could control the elements? It sounded like something out of a fairy tale, not a real story. But the traveler's words were serious, and Aiden could see the truth in his eyes. "And now we're going to free it?" Aiden asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "We are not freeing it," the traveler replied. "We are restoring the balance. The chains that bind the beast are weakening, and soon they will break on their own. If that happens, the world will change, and not for the better." Aiden stared into the fire, the flames dancing in front of him as his thoughts swirled. He had never asked for any of this. All he had wanted was a simple life, working as a blacksmith, forging tools for the villagers. But now, he was a part of something much bigger than himself, something that could change the course of history. That night, Aiden lay awake in his bedroll, staring up at the sky. The stars were bright above him, their light shining down on the darkened world. The stillness of the mountains felt both comforting and unsettling. The journey had taken them far from everything familiar, and now there was no turning back. The next day, the air grew colder, and the mountains seemed to close in around them. The path became narrower, the trees thicker, until the forest was dense with ancient towering pines. Aiden could barely see through the thick foliage, and every step they took seemed to lead them deeper into the unknown. The traveler's pace never slowed, his eyes scanning the forest ahead of him, as though he knew exactly where they were going. Aiden struggled to keep up, but he had no choice but to follow. The terrain was rough, and the trees seemed to press in on them from all sides. Every now and then, Aiden would hear a rustle in the underbrush, a flicker of movement, but when he turned to look, nothing was there. It was as though the forest itself was watching them. After hours of walking, the traveler finally stopped. They had reached a small clearing, the ground covered in thick moss and wildflowers. In the center of the clearing stood a massive stone door, half hidden by vines and the roots of ancient trees. The door was covered in intricate carvings, symbols that Aiden couldn't understand, but that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. "This is it?" the traveler said, his voice low. "The entrance to the temple where the beast is bound." Aiden stared at the door, his heart pounding in his chest. He had heard stories of such places, hidden temples, long-forgotten shrines, but he had never imagined he would actually be standing before one. The traveler stepped forward, his hand resting on the stone. "The beast is not far, but before we go in, you must be prepared." This is no ordinary place. It is filled with traps, old magic, and dangers beyond your understanding. Aiden swallowed, his throat dry. He had never been a warrior, never trained to fight. But now it seemed he had no choice. The traveler turned to him, his eyes serious. "Are you ready?" Aiden nodded, though doubt still lingered in his mind. "I don't know if I'm ready, but I'll follow you. I have no other choice." The traveler smiled, though it was a tight smile full of understanding. "Then let's go. The chains are weakening, and the time to act is now." The air inside the temple was thick with age, the scent of damp stone and forgotten magic hanging in the stillness. Aiden felt a shiver run down his spine as he stepped over the threshold, the door creaking closed behind him with an unsettling echo. The space before them was vast, far larger than anything Aiden had imagined. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings, old symbols that seemed to move and shift when he looked at them too long. They told stories of an ancient time when gods walked the earth and creatures of unimaginable power roamed freely. The traveler led the way, his steps confident, his eyes scanning the surroundings with a practiced ease. Aiden followed close behind, trying to steady his breath. The weight of the sword in his hand felt heavier with each step, its blade now shining brightly, almost as if it were aware of its purpose. "This is the heart of the temple," the traveler said, his voice low, reverberating off the stone walls. "The chains of the beast are somewhere deeper, beneath the earth. We must reach the chamber where it is bound." Aiden nodded, trying to keep his nerves in check. He had no idea what to expect, but one thing was clear. The journey had brought them to the point of no return. There was no turning back now. As they moved through the temple, Aiden couldn't help but notice the strange silence that seemed to envelop them. The air felt heavier here, the temperature cooler. There was something unsettling about the place, as if the very stones themselves were alive, watching their every move. They reached a large hall, its ceiling high and adorned with more carvings, all depicting the beast, its fierce eyes, its powerful limbs, and the chains that held it captive. The images seemed to stare back at Aiden, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were warning him. The beast was close, and they were walking straight toward it. The traveler stopped before a large stone door at the far end of the hall. His hand rested on the door's surface, and Aiden could see the faint glow of ancient magic pulsing through the stone. The traveler turned to Aiden, his eyes serious. "This is it," he said. "Behind this door lies the chamber where the beast is, held. The chains are powerful, but they are not unbreakable. You must be ready." Aiden took a deep breath and nodded. He wasn't sure what he was expecting, but he knew that whatever lay beyond this door would change everything. The traveler's words echoed in his mind. The chains are weakening. The time to act is now. The traveler stepped forward, his hand pressing against the door. It creaked open slowly, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The room was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the chains that bound the beast. Aiden's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped into the chamber, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. There, in the center of the room, lay the creature. At first, Aiden could barely make it out. Its massive form was obscured by shadows, its size difficult to comprehend. The creature's body was coiled and twisted, its limbs bound by enormous chains that glimmered with a faint, otherworldly light. The chains stretched across the room, each link larger than a man's fist, each glowing with ancient energy. But it was the creature's eyes that caught Aiden's attention. Even in the dim light, he could see them. Fiery, intelligent eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness and directly into his soul. The beast was alive, but it wasn't moving. It lay there, its immense body coiled in the center of the room, as if waiting for something or someone. Aiden could feel its presence, a heavy weight in the air, and he could sense the power that radiated from it. The traveler stepped forward, his voice echoing in the chamber. "The chains are weakening," he said again. "But it will not be enough. The beast must be freed, completely. Only then will the sword have its true power." Aiden looked at the sword in his hand, its weight seeming to increase with the realization of what he had to do. He wasn't just a blacksmith anymore. He wasn't just fixing a sword. He was standing in front of an ancient beast, the kind of creature that legends were made of, and he was the one who had to decide its fate. The traveler stood beside him, watching silently, waiting for Aiden to act. He didn't say another word, but Aiden could sense the urgency in the air. Aiden took a step forward, his heart racing. The chains were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were massive, shimmering with a light that seemed to come from within. Them. The magic that bound the beast was ancient, woven into the very fabric of the world. And yet, Aiden could feel it. The magic was weakening. The chains were no longer as strong as they had once been. He raised the sword, the blade now glowing, with a soft light of its own. For a moment, Aiden hesitated. Could he really do this? Was he strong enough? The weight of the decision felt unbearable. Then he thought of the traveler's words. The chains are weakening. The time to act is now. Without another thought, Aiden swung the sword. It struck the chains with a resounding clang, the sound echoing through the chamber like thunder. The blade connected with one of the chains, and for a moment, nothing happened. But then the chain began to glow brighter, and Aiden could feel the magic shift. The chains that had once been unbreakable began to crack. Aiden struck again, this time with more force, and the chain shattered, the links flying apart like shards of glass. The beast stirred, its massive form shifting as the chains holding it loosened. Aiden stepped back, his breath caught in his throat as the creature's eyes glowed brighter. The traveler stood motionless, watching as Aiden continued to break the chains one by one. Each swing of the sword felt like a battle, each strike stronger than the last. The chains were breaking, but the beast was awakening, and as it did, Aiden could feel the power that it held. The air around them grew heavy, charged with energy. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and Aiden could feel the force of the beast's power rising. He struck one final blow, and the last chain shattered. For a moment, the world was still. Then, with a roar that shook the very walls of the temple, the beast moved. The silence that followed the shattering of the final chain was almost unbearable. The air was thick with tension, as if the entire world was holding its breath. Aiden stood frozen, his hand still gripping the sword, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the beast's presence, its immense power now free to rise after centuries of captivity. Slowly, the massive form of the creature began to stir. Aiden took a step back, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. The beast's enormous wings fluttered slightly, and its enormous body shifted, shaking off the remnants of the chains that had bound it for so long. The temple walls groaned under the weight of the movement, and the ground trembled beneath Aiden's feet. The beast's eyes opened fully, glowing with a fierce, fiery light. They locked onto Aiden, piercing him to his very core. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Aiden couldn't look away. The eyes were intelligent, ancient, and filled with a kind of sadness and rage that he couldn't understand. It was a creature born of magic and forgotten history, a force of nature too powerful for the world to control. "Why?" The beast's voice rumbled, deep and resonant, vibrating through the very air. It spoke not with words, but with a power that resonated directly in Aiden's mind. "Why have you freed me, mortal?" Aiden swallowed hard, his voice trembling as he spoke. "I didn't know what I was doing. I just—" "You did not know?" The beast interrupted, its voice echoing with a strange mixture of amusement and anger. "Then why, human, did you choose to break the chains? Was it out of curiosity? Or something else?" Aiden shook his head, his grip tightening on the sword. "I didn't mean to. I was just following him," he stammered, pointing to the traveler. The traveler, who had remained silent up until this point, stepped forward, meeting the beast's gaze without fear. "It was time," the traveler said calmly, his eyes never leaving the creature. "The chains have weakened for centuries. There, magic could not hold you forever." The beast's gaze shifted to the traveler, a flicker of recognition in its eyes. "So it is you, the last of the line, the one who once bound me." Its voice was now tinged with both respect and disdain. "You think you have the right to release me? To unleash the very force of destruction upon this world?" The traveler remained calm, standing tall in the face of the beast's power. "It is not destruction I seek. It is balance. You were bound not to punish you, but to protect this world from your own power. And now, you are free. But that power must be controlled, or it will be the end of us all." The beast let out a low growl, its enormous form shifting again as it began to rise from its resting place. Its wings stretched wide, sending gusts of wind through the chamber. Aiden could barely comprehend its size. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, with scales that shimmered like molten metal and eyes that seemed to see right through him. "You speak of balance," the beast mused, its voice full of bitterness. "But what is balance? What is the world to you, human? A world of fragile, fleeting lives, a world that fears me and my kind. You imprisoned me, but the world is not better for it. The chains were not the only thing that bound me. The world itself has been broken, just like the magic that held me." Aiden could feel the beast's power radiating in the air, an overwhelming force that seemed to crush everything around him. It was as though the creature's very presence bent the world to its will. The walls of the temple began to crack under the strain, dust falling from the ceiling as if the place itself was being reshaped. "But I was not the one who bound you," Aiden said, his voice growing stronger despite the fear that gnawed at him. "I didn't come here to free you. I didn't ask for this. I'm just a blacksmith." The beast's gaze softened for a moment, as if it was seeing Aiden for the first time. "You are not like the others," it said, its tone almost thoughtful. "You are not like the kings or the wizards who sought to control me. You do not seek power, but you freed me all the same. And now, the world will change." The traveler stepped forward again, his voice steady. "We have no choice but to face the consequences. You are free, but what happens next is in your hands. You may choose to destroy, to rule, or to protect." Aiden looked at the traveler, confused. "What do you mean? How can we control it? How can we stop it?" The beast chuckled, a sound like thunder rolling across the sky. "Control me? You cannot control me, mortal. You cannot even understand what I am capable of. The power I hold is not something you can tame with words or swords." The traveler remained unmoved, his eyes locked on the beast. "You are not just a creature of destruction. You are also a creature of creation. You have the power to shape the world. But that power must be used wisely." For a long moment, the beast was silent, its fiery eyes flickering with an emotion Aiden couldn't quite place. Then slowly the creature's massive form began to shrink, its wings folding against its body. The ground beneath them stopped, shaking, and the air seemed to calm. "Perhaps you are right, traveler," the beast said, its voice softer now, more contemplative. "Perhaps I have been wrong. Perhaps the world has changed, but it is not too late to decide what I will be." Aiden watched in awe as the creature seemed to withdraw into itself, its immense power becoming contained once more. The temple, though still standing, no longer felt like it was on the verge of collapse. The beast, while still free, had chosen to wait, to listen, to see what the world would bring. Aiden didn't know what to think. He had freed the beast, but in that moment it seemed as if the creature was more than just a force of destruction. It was something else, something beyond human comprehension. The traveler turned to Aiden, his expression grim but resolute. The world is on the brink of a new era. We must choose how we move forward. Aiden nodded, still uncertain about what had just happened. The creature was awake, but its intentions were unclear. The world was changing, and now he was a part of it. The air inside the temple was heavy with silence. The beast, now smaller in form but still radiating immense power, stood before Aiden and the traveler. Its fiery eyes gleamed with something new, something different from the rage and anger that had filled the chamber before. It was as though the beast was considering its own future, weighing its options in a way it had never done before. Aiden felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had come here with no idea what to expect. His life had been simple, just a blacksmith, fixing swords, living quietly in his village. And yet, here he was, standing in the heart of a long-forgotten temple, with an ancient creature that could reshape the world at his feet. The power of the beast was overwhelming, but so was the responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. "What will you do?" The traveler's voice broke the silence, his tone calm but tinged with urgency. He stepped forward, standing between Aiden and the beast, his eyes never leaving the creature. "The world is no longer as it was. You are free, but what you choose next will determine the future of everything." The beast's eyes narrowed, and it lowered its massive head. "I have been bound for so long," it said, its voice deep and heavy, filled with the weight of centuries. "I have been a prisoner, and now I am free. But I am not sure what freedom means. I do not know if I want to destroy the world, or if I want to protect it." Aiden felt a surge of fear and wonder at the same time. How could he, a mere blacksmith, have any say in the fate of the world? What right did he have to make a decision about something as powerful and ancient as this beast? "I didn't come here to change the world," Aiden said, his voice trembling but resolute. "I didn't want any of this, but now that it's happened, I think it's up to you. You have the power to decide what you want to be. But the, world doesn't have to end in destruction? Maybe it's time for something new." The beast seemed to consider his words, its fiery eyes scanning Aiden's face, searching for something. After a long pause, the creature spoke again, but its voice was softer, more thoughtful. "Maybe you are right, human. Perhaps I do not have to destroy, but I do not know how to create either. For so long I have been locked away, forgotten, and I have lost the will to build. I can only take the world, take the lives, take everything. That is all I know." Aiden stepped forward, feeling a sense of clarity wash over him. He didn't know what to say, but something in his gut told him that the beast didn't need to be destroyed. It needed something else, something more than just power. It needed to be shown that it could change, just as he had. Aiden had gone from a simple blacksmith to a part of something much bigger than he could have ever imagined. If he could change, maybe the beast could too. "I don't know how to show you what's possible," Aiden said softly, "but maybe you can start by learning. You've been alone for so long, but the world is full of people. People who are afraid, yes, but also people who can teach you. People who can help you see what's worth protecting. Maybe you don't need to be a force of destruction. Maybe you can be something else." The beast looked at him for a long moment, as though weighing the words. Its fiery eyes softened slightly, and the ground beneath them seemed to calm. The power that had been thrumming in the air began to settle. the energy that had once felt so threatening now, feeling more controlled, more focused. "I have been alone for so long," the beast said quietly. "I have only known myself, and in that loneliness, I have become something I do not want to be. You speak of people, of the world outside this place. But I have never known them, never known what it is to live among them." "You don't have to be alone anymore," Aiden said, his voice full of quiet conviction. "You can learn, grow, and change. You don't have to be a prisoner to your past. No one is." The traveler, who had remained silent during the exchange, stepped forward now, nodding as he regarded the beast. "Aiden is right. The world is not what it was when you were imprisoned. There is more now, more than destruction, more than power. The world is changing, and so can you." The beast's head tilted, and for a moment it seemed to be lost in thought. Then it slowly stood taller, its wings stretching out to their full span, not in a gesture of dominance, but of release, of freedom, not just from the chains that had bound it, but from the very mindset that had kept it isolated for so long. "I do not know what the future holds," the beast said, its voice filled with uncertainty, but also with a hint of something new. "Hope. But I will try. I will learn." Aiden felt a weight lift from his chest, and for the first time since entering the temple, he allowed himself to relax, just a little. The beast, though still powerful, had chosen a different path, a path of discovery, of change. "Thank you," the beast added, its eyes meeting Aiden's. "You have shown me something I have never known. Maybe it is time for me to see the world not as a conqueror, but as a part of it." The traveler smiled, though his face was tired, worn from the journey. "It is not too late. The world is full of possibilities." Aiden looked at the creature one last time, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. He had come here thinking he was part of something bigger than himself. And now, he realized, the world was bigger than either of them. The beast had been freed, but it wasn't just its chains that had broken. It was its heart, too. With that, the three of them, Aiden, the traveler, and the once imprisoned beast, turned and walked out of the temple. The world was waiting, and though the future was uncertain, it was also full of promise. The journey had begun.